And so, in regards to the advance notice proposed rulemaking in regards to the flavor ban, there are 9 states that submitted their own scientific studies slash comments to the FDA on July 19, 2018. And that's what, like I said in the other video with the Vapor Technology Association, you're going to wind up with the other side that submits also their scientific studies to the FDA. And these particular 9 states that signed off on this, and I'll show you the letter that they sent, include some serious studies in there. And, who knows? And they speak about the master settlement agreement with Big Tobacco. And these 9 states also was a part of the settlement. And that has a lot of sway to the FDA's way of thinking when it comes to the Tobacco Control Act, or how, in regards to regulating tobacco. Just read a bit of it. So this is it came out off of the New York State Office of the Attorney General, Barbara D. Underwood, July 20th, 2018. That's what it reads. Attorney General Underwood, a leading bipartisan coalition of 9 attorney generals, urges FDA to ban flavored tobacco. New York Attorney General Barbara D. Underwood, leading a bipartisan coalition of 9 attorneys general, filed comments urging the Food and Drug Administration to ban flavored tobacco products, which have been repeatedly shown to lead middle and high school students to begin tobacco use at a young age. Attorney General Underwood states, the FDA's fundamental responsibility is to protect the health and well-being of the American public. A ban on flavored tobacco products is critical to New Yorkers' public health, especially young New Yorkers who too often get hooked on these products at a young age, leading to a lifetime of addiction. Now, I want to say something on a side note. When I grew up as a kid, and I started smoking cigarettes, I believe it was about 1976 or 1977. I started off with just regular tobacco. I can't even remember the brand I started with. Oh man, it's been a long time. Maybe Claritin, or not Claritin, Carlton or something like that. Or Salem. No, it wasn't Salem. I can't remember what cigarette I started off with. But I eventually went to Marlboro Reds, and then I went to Marlboro Menthols. I smoked Newports for a little while, but they were way too strong for me. But the point is I went to Marlboro Reds, and the very first cigarette I smoked had no menthol in it. I even did Camels for a short period of time, but they were extremely strong. The point is they were tobacco, period. Didn't have any flavors when I was a kid, and I still smoked cigarettes, combusted cigarettes, as most people did. So, in other words, kids, people middle, teenagers, even maybe younger than that. I mean, you could be 9, 10, 11 years old and smoke cigarettes if you're prone to do so. And so if there's no flavors on the market, they're going to smoke cigarettes anyway. They're going to get them from older kids, those over the age of 18 or 21, and smoke them anyway. So, and the funny thing is, when you really think about it, is that in my generation, as well as a couple other generations after that, up until about 2012, combusted cigarettes with no flavors was very high in percentage with teenagers. And you didn't even have any flavors in those combusted cigarettes. And then you wind up with flavored, e-cigarettes or vapor products. And the combusted cigarettes that had no flavors, the percentage of teenagers using that particular product actually went down as e-cigarette use went up. So my point is let's say if they do away with flavors, vapor products, little cigars, things of that nature, kids are going to still smoke because it has an image. There's an image attached to being cool. Well, maybe it's not as cool as it used to be smoking a cigarette, but still, it's still a vice. So kids tend to, we all been there, pretty much, all of us. You always think you're cool. Your friend has it. They pass it along to you. You do it. Some kids get hooked, some do not. Also, you do it for the high of the nicotine. You do it for the rush. So you don't need flavors to be addicted to cigarettes. So I just want to point that out, because as I'm reading this one here, the Vapor Technology Association, other articles that I've yet to do videos on, I'm thinking to myself, wait, hold it here. When I was growing up as a kid, I didn't need flavors, and I still got addicted to combusted cigarettes. So, it's just some food for thought. In other words, what I'm saying is, if you take the flavors out of the picture, you have a flavor ban. Kids are still, teenagers, maybe even younger than teenagers, are still going to smoke combusted cigarettes. In fact, they probably will smoke them even more because they don't have the alternative of vapor products. Kids are going to be kids. They're going to rebel. They think it's cool. Their friends do it. They do it. Period. I'd rather have them smoke vapor smoke. Well, in a way, I guess. I'd rather have them smoke premium cigars or vapor products. I was going to say smoke vapor products, but use vapor products than combusted cigarettes. Yeah. Premium cigars can still give you serious problems. But if I was going to say anything positive in that regard to combustion or combusted cigarettes or combusted tobacco, I would say have the kid smoke a premium cigar over those combusted cigarettes, especially a premium cigar that is hand rolled and hardly any chemicals are used in the processing of that particular cigar. And then, of course, e-cigarettes are vapor products. I'd rather have kids use vapor products than smoke combusted cigarettes. And here they are going to do away with flavors. There's a good possibility it can happen. Can't happen, especially now you got 9 states against this whole thing here. These 9 states support a flavor ban across the board, not just for the flavors we know, but also menthol. They're also against menthol. This is 9 states, so it's almost 1/5 of the country. But the point is kids are still gonna, teenagers or even those younger than that, are still going to smoke cigarettes. And they won't have the alternative to have something healthier and better for them in regards to vapor products. Anyway, so let me continue. So let's do the letter. So when you click onto this, this is the letter was led by Attorney General Underwood and signed by the Attorneys General of New York, Idaho, Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, New Mexico, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. And this is the letter here. Submitted on July 19th, 2018. They waited till the last day to submit it. Just like the Vapor Technology Association. I won't go through this too much here. I'll put this underneath the video, so if you want to read it, you may. So anyway, it says, the undersigned state attorneys general submit these comments in response to the advance notice proposed rulemaking titled Regulation of Flavors in Tobacco Products. It is well settled that tobacco companies use flavors to mask the harshness of tobacco and nicotine, and thereby making it easier for new and younger users to become addicted. Congress acknowledged this fact when it passed the Family Smoking Prevention Tobacco Control Act, banning cigarettes with characterizing flavors except for tobacco and menthol flavors. The advance notice proposed rulemaking also acknowledges this fact and cites much of the evidence demonstrating that first use of flavored tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, is more likely to lead to continued use of tobacco products and nicotine dependence than first use of non-flavored tobacco products. It does. I don't know. In fact, before flavored vapor products, before flavored cigarettes, cigarettes, just plain tobacco, it's been on the market for over 100 years. And before any kind of even flavored cigarettes, or even before flavored cigarillos, or before vapor products with flavors, there existed generations of tobacco smokers, of combusted tobacco smokers with no flavors. Anyway. So then they do have these studies. Now they have a slew of studies, and it's all part of the footnotes they use. So in here, like on the one, then they do the one, well, they're citing from the Federal Register, but here, like on this here. So on number 2, where is 2? All right, going here. On the 2, they cite this particular thing here. And this is a study here. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. I may only show you the studies that they did. If you want to read it, I'll put the link under the video, and then you can take a look at it. Do you want to read this here? State attorneys general have been at the forefront of the fight against tobacco products for decades. In the 1990s, every state attorney general sued the major tobacco companies for the harm their products cause and reached settlement agreements that, among other things, include restrictions on the advertising, marketing, and promotion of cigarettes. The most famous of these agreements, the 1998 Master Settlement Agreement, specifically banned youth targeting by tobacco manufacturers. Thanks in part to this agreement, youth cigarette use has declined significantly over the past 20 years, which is true. It's also part of this Master Settlement Agreement because it has a lot to do with marketing the combusted cigarette to the youth. So they had to eliminate that from the picture. But it also had to do with the rise starting in about 2014 especially, but even in 2012, but mainly in significant numbers since 2014. And then in regards to vapor products rising amongst the youth. And then in 2016, those numbers start to come down because the FDA found a rule. And then they put the Master Settlement Agreement there. You could read it if you want. Then they do a survey, which this will not be counted. And then they talk about something that the FDA put out. They might look at that. I don't know. And then another one, FDA. The FDA doesn't necessarily want to read a study that the FDA did. They want independent scientific studies. So that's not going to count. That's not going to count. They're quoting from the Federal Register. This, pretty sure that they're going to count that. So, yeah, they're going to count that one. They're not going to count this because that's in the Federal Register. Again, they're quoting from the Tobacco Control Act. They're not going to count that one. They would definitely be counting this one. They won't count that, but they will count this one. They'll count that. So there's a slew of them that the FDA is required by federal law to look at. The stuff that's quoted out of the Federal Register in regards to the FDA final rule, Tobacco Control Act, FDA is going to just ignore them. They want independent scientific studies. They know their own scientific evidence that's on the books at the FDA. They know all that already. So they don't want to read something that they created themselves. This Pennywise e-liquid is really good, by the way. Chad Gates sounds like an interesting idea. I'll be ordering that probably in the next 2 weeks or so. Stuff like this is really important. Clinical psychopharmacology. FDA be interested in that. Be interested in this one here, drug and alcohol dependence this year. Then you talk about menthol use in minority populations. Has a lot to do with the San Francisco flavor ban. The reason why it passed the board at that time was because, or the city council was because of targeted minority populations. So we don't care about the FDA menthol report because FDA knows that report already. But they'll be interested in something like this one here. This is out of the FDA final rules, so they, but stuff like this they'll be interested in, except for this one here. They won't be interested in this, or they won't be interested in this because the FDA wrote that. They know their own studies, they know their own evidence. Survey, they're going to discount that. There's a lot of stuff in here that the FDA is going to ignore, but there is a slew of stuff that the FDA is required by federal law to take a look at. They're not going to look at this because it's out of the parent to the FDA, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They know that already. They, like I said, they want independent scientific studies. See this stuff now. This is serious. National Academies of Sciences. This particular, I mean, they get grants from the FDA, but if this speaks in terms of anything negative about vaping and flavors, the FDA will take the National Academies of Sciences. They will that will weigh heavily against us. In fact, let me pause this and take a look at that particular study. Yeah, I'm sure the FDA is aware of this particular study, but nevertheless, they're going to, and if they're not, they're going to read it and they're going to sink their teeth into it, because the national sciences of, how's it go? Actually, I'm going to get that right again. Just lost that damn thing. One second here. The National Academies of Sciences, yes. That is something that the FDA will definitely read. They depend on them. I mean, actually, they actually get that National Academies of Sciences, they actually get grants from the FDA to do studies. Yeah, see these guys here. These guys are huge. Absolutely. See, it even says it here, look, with support from the Center for Tobacco Products of the Food and Drug Administration, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine convened an expert committee to conduct a critical, objective review of the scientific evidence about e-cigarettes and health. And they don't speak too nicely in our favor. It says the evidence reviewed by the committee suggests that e-cigarettes are not without biological effects in humans. The implications for long-term effects on morbidity and mortality are not yet clear. And then they break it down to conclusive evidence, substantial evidence, moderate, limited, insufficient, no available evidence. So this is what we need to be careful about in this study. So conclusive evidence is there are many supportive findings from good quality controlled studies, including randomized and non-randomized controlled trials with no credible opposing findings. A firm conclusion can be made, and the limitations to the evidence, including chance, bias, and confounding factors, can be ruled out with reasonable confidence. So that's the key thing. I'm sure they break it down. I like to find that where they the conclusive evidence. Let me pause this a second. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, well, part of this thing that I was showing you here from the National Academies of Sciences, and why I focus on this one here in particular is because it's very important. The FDA will definitely be interested in this particular study. Okay, so what you do is if you click onto this here to see the full text of the committee's conclusions organized by levels of evidence and outcome, you click onto that. Takes it to the National Academies of Sciences. And then it breaks it all down. Okay. Let me pause this real quick. Okay, so it brings you to this here. Public health consequences of e-cigarettes, conclusions by level of evidence. And the conclusive evidence is, there is conclusive evidence that e-cigarette use increases airborne concentrations of particulate matter and nicotine in indoor environments compared with background levels. Exposure to nicotine from e-cigarettes is highly variable and depends on product characteristics, including device and e-liquid characteristics and how the device is operated. In addition to nicotine, most e-cigarette products contain and emit numerous potentially toxic substances. Other than nicotine, the number, quantity, and characteristics of potentially toxic substances emitted from e-cigarettes are highly variable and depend on product characteristics. E-cigarette devices can explode and cause burns and projectile injuries, such as risk is significantly increased when batteries are of poor quality, stored improperly, or modified by users. Intentional or accidental exposure to e-liquids from drinking, eye contact, or dermal contact can result in adverse health effects, including but not limited to seizures, anoxic brain injury, vomiting, and lactic acidosis. I don't know. Intentionally or unintentionally drinking or injecting e-liquids can be fatal. I don't know who would want to inject it, but whatever. Completely substituting e-cigarettes for combustible tobacco cigarettes reduces users' exposure to numerous toxicants and carcinogens present in combustible tobacco cigarettes. So at least, that's a positive thing. And then they have substantial evidence, and then they have, and they show the levels, and then moderate evidence and limited evidence as well. What I'm going to do is actually put this link under the video so you can read it, so you understand it. Anyway, so that's, and you can, I'll put this link, take that out, put this link. In fact, I won't have to put this link here, but and we'll download that real quick though. But all you have to do is I'll put this link down, okay? And what you need to do is, do whatever you like, but to find with that page, it's the fourth one down. So it's this one here. I'm going to click onto that and it'll bring that up. And you can take a look at the organized by level of evidence, the conclusions of this particular study, which will weigh heavily in regards to the way the FDA is looking at a flavor ban. They're going to take that, especially Mitch Zeller, director of Center for Tobacco Products, is definitely going to love that particular report, or study, I should say. So that is not a very good one for us. There's maybe some things in there that will speak highly of us, but most of it will be speaking negatively. So where was I at? So I was right here, yeah. So I'm going to put this link and the other link under the video. You take a look at it if you're interested. Why I really go right to these footnotes is because, of course, they're the studies, most of them are, and this is really all that counts. This is what the FDA is going to look at. They're not, they'll read this, but they're going to skim through it. All this stuff, just like with the Vapor Technology Association, 84 pages, you could deduce it down to 70 pages is all really they're required by federal law to read. All this other stuff, they don't, they'll read it, skim through it, but they don't care about that. They need these particular things here, all these studies. Valuation. Another one here. Evaluation is equivalent to a study. It's not a survey. So surveys they can ignore by federal law, by their own policy, actually. It's not so much by federal law. It's more by FDA policy. They prefer to ignore surveys but by federal law, they're required to read, when it comes to an advance notice of proposed rulemaking, it's required by federal law to read all the studies that are submitted to them. And some other ones here. This is a study here. See, that's a serious one there. See, here is from Forselinos, but it's a survey. Now, unless he puts that into and turn it into a study, they're going to skip over that. Like when Forselinos just did the 2018 flavor survey, hopefully he turns that into a study. If he doesn't turn that into a study, we're screwed on that. But I took the chance that that's what he's going to do. That's why I completed that survey. This will be ignored. So, I mean, you get the point. This is from the United States Department of Health and Human Services. They know this already. They probably won't even read it. Same with this one here. This is emissions testing protocols coming from the Environmental Protection Agency. They may read that. They may read that if they're not aware of it. Probably are aware of it, though. So this here, they'll probably read this. It's a test. They like tests. They'll read that. They may read this, the FTC, Federal Trade Commission guidance. They could read that. So anyway, it says, in light of the above, FDA should take the step of banning flavored tobacco products and join the several countries taking a strong stand for public health. Just this year, Brazil's highest court upheld that a ban on all flavors and additives in tobacco products. Canada last year finalized a ban on menthol tobacco products. By 2020, the European Union will have phased out all flavored tobacco products and most additives. Now this situation here, unless it's changed, may very well weigh heavily against us. And most recently, San Francisco voters approved a proposition that would ban the sale of flavored tobacco products, including menthol cigarettes and flavored vaping liquids. The evidence that flavors in e-cigarettes will benefit public health is extremely limited, to say the least. And to date, the tobacco and e-cigarette companies have failed to show how flavors in tobacco products may improve the public health. In short, FDA must act on its responsibility to the public. The mission of the Department of Health and Human Services is to enhance and protect the health and well-being of all Americans. The cost of doing nothing, whether measured in dollars saved or lives lost, is too great a price to pay. And these are the particular persons that, the attorney generals that submitted this letter. Sure, they attempted other attorney generals to submit letters, but they probably, I mean, I don't know this for sure, but they probably declined. So anyway, yeah, I just want to share this little information with you that even states, there are 9 states on record that are for the flavor ban. And so I'll put this link under the video, and I will put this, let's see. One second here. Let me pause this. Okay, so I'll put this link under the video with the Attorney Generals, and then I'll also put the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine under the video. And this is what, I mean, you look at the other stuff, but this is really about their conclusive evidence, the levels of evidence, substantial evidence, things of that nature you may want to look at. And then they even have a YouTube video explaining the consequences of e-cigarette use, so you may want to look at that as well. So that's pretty much it, guys. I just want to share this with you, impart some more knowledge for you, and you guys have a good one. Bye-bye.